Although the group assignments have not changed, Joan will read the group assignments just as a refresher for all of us. Joan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Group 1, Alberto Sanchez, Ray Santos, Linda Molina, Bridget Moore, and Alonzo Ledesma. Group 2, Jeremy Smith, Jim Steiner, Timothy J. Sheridan, Dean Deans, Scott Vinton, and Zach Schwank. Group 3, Jocelyn Yao, Brian Berkson, David Marquez, Ted Hoffman, Malcolm Corona, and Andy Malendras. And Group 4, Karen Spiegel, Jerry Sinsich, Andrea Mayers, and Art Welch.
Thank you very much, Joan. The next item on the agenda is the legislative update, and it is our privilege to have David Turch with us today virtually. And David, would you please give us a legislative update?
Well, good afternoon. It is always my pleasure to be with you, even though today I guess I'm not with you. I want to begin by reiterating what a pleasure it is to work with Mr. Rubio and Jim Neepkins and the rest of the staff at RTA. They provide the direction which makes our job so very much easier and much more effective. And I would like to point out their effort to the board, because I think the teamwork with our people here in Washington and your staff really matters an awful lot for you, and too many times it may be overlooked. So my hat's off to your staff. Then I wanted to focus retroactively on our activities of the past year. A little unusual. Usually I'm just talking prospectively. In March of 2020, 1 year ago, RTA received from the CARES Act, let's call it COVID Stimulus 1, what we refer to as a significant amount of money. When COVID Stimulus 2 passed in December of 2020, RTA got what we then called an insignificant amount of money. That is, you didn't get anything. The reason was congressional change for allocation, the new allocation benefiting to a great extent large agencies, and for the most part, punishing entities like RTA. We addressed this issue with a major national transportation association. I won't name them, but their initials are APTA. And we deemed their response unprofessional and unhelpful. Kevin Bosch, who's on the video with us, of our staff, worked to put together a coalition of affected parties, which included the Community Transportation Association of America, the Bus Coalition, and others. Our goal was to provide equality for all transit providers. And by that, I mean RTA. Working together, we were successful in COVID Stimulus 3, the American Rescue Plan passed this month. That act provides more than $70 million to be allocated to the 2 urbanized areas served by RTA. We expect as a result of those efforts, RTA will again be able to receive what we're calling a significant amount. Part of that's up to SCAG. Prospectively, we're into the appropriations section activities now for fiscal year 2022. I think the most significant thing about the appropriation cycle this month, at this time, is that we are very likely, almost certainly, to return to earmarks. Both the House Republicans and the House Democrats have given their approval to earmarks. Senate Democrats have given their approval. And in the Senate Republicans, the most senior members are in favor. There are a couple of Republicans in the Senate who are opposed, but in a conversation night before last with Ken Calvert, he indicated that Mr. McConnell is not going to make it a caucus issue, but rather every senator should just vote their own conscience, however they feel about earmarks. As you know, working together, you and I have been very successful with the whole earmark program. I'd like to make a couple of points. First of all, we can't call them earmarks anymore. They are community project funding or congressionally directed initiatives, but I don't care what you call them. I'm happy as a clam to get them back. The second thing, and I know you've heard this from me a dozen times at least, but I want you to remember and tell your constituents, earmarks do not add 1 penny to federal expenditures. They merely determine who gets to allocate how that tax money is spent. And it's always made sense to me that the elected representatives who are closest to the people should have some sense in how your tax money is being spent. So much for earmarks. I think the next big issue coming down the pike is an additional plus up of $3 trillion infrastructure package. Looks like it's going to be divided into 2 parts, but we're talking about the successor to the FAST Act. So we need to do this under the law by the end of September, or as I say, 12:01 a.m. of October 1st of this calendar year. We're looking at a $3 trillion package. We're talking about expanding it beyond just building roads and bridges into infrastructure, water, into broadband, a whole number of things. And the word in Washington is that the $3 trillion, at least in initial discussions, may be on the low side. Ways and Means Committee just day before yesterday added an additional $400 billion project. So let's see where that goes. As I say all the time, I'm so pleased to have Ms. Vitella, who's hiding in the background somewhere, and Mr. Bosch. And for any difficult questions you have, Mr. Bosch is here to answer them. Well, hearing none, thank you so much for listening to me.
Not so fast. Not so fast, David. Not so fast. I was muted. Thank you so much for that update. And we're going to go through the groups to see if there's any questions or comments. So let's start with group number 1. Any questions or comments for David or Kevin? Hearing none. Okay, group 2. Oh, come on. Somebody's got to come up with something here. Group 3. I see people moving.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Malendras. I think I'm in group 3. But I
Go ahead, Andy.
All right, great. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's always very enjoyable to listen to your presentation, good news or bad news. But my question really has to do more specifically to light rail. Was there any discussion on funding light rails in urban areas? And also, when you talked about having money funneled into RTA into the two urban areas that we service, what 2 urban areas were you speaking of?
We're really talking about San Bernardino, Riverside as they're identified, and then Menifee, Temecula as the second. I think 70-some billion goes to the Riverside, San Bernardino, and something short of $1 billion goes to the Temecula, Menifee urban area. Mr. Bosch, you may have more precise numbers.
Yeah, it depends upon which allocation, but the 2 allocations, one did go to the Riverside, San Bernardino. That's the bulk of the money, and then the smaller allocation goes to the Murrieta, Temecula, Menifee. To your question about light rail, there will be funding, let's say, in the down in the successor for the Surface Transportation Act. That would be an opportunity to do real funding and for a new light rail project. If a city or an entity currently has light rail, then that's they will be getting allocations for that through the stimulus funding that has previously occurred. I mean, David knows, as we currently work on, and I'm not certain, David, if it qualifies as light rail or not, but the Gold Line extension. So, Mr. Melendez, did that answer your question?
Yes, and maybe we can be a little more specific. The reason I'm asking that is when you talk about urban areas, I thought it was 2 urban areas of RTA, but I'm glad you're separating those between Riverside and San Bernardino County. Because one of the light rail projects I think they have going on in San Bernardino County, which is kind of between San Bernardino and Redlands, kind of helping facilitate that. I didn't know if any of that money would qualify for that, or whether we would have to arm wrestle for our portion of the monies. I don't know how we're going to go about dividing that.
Much of that money is divided by SCAG, so we won't have a direct input. And then when you're talking about San Bernardino to Redlands, are you talking about the heavy rail extension of Metrolink, or are you talking about a light rail line?
It was a innovative light rail line. I think it was going to be an all-electric line. I can't be sure, or maybe they were going with hydrogen trains. It was passenger predominantly. I don't believe it was a Metrolink extension.
I'm up to speed. That scheme has been around for 30 years, I think. As a matter of fact, I think Junipero Serra must have been talking about it when he was there. It's been around for a while. In any event, I'm less familiar with it currently.
All right, great. Thank you. Good to see you again.
All right,
You
thank
too,
you,
Andy.
Andy. Is there anyone else in group 3? Then we'll move on to group 4.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Jerry Sinsich. I have a question.
Yes.
This has to do, thank you for a great presentation. I do appreciate it. With regard to the $3 trillion infrastructure, is there any idea of how much funding may be going to transit out of that bucket?
Mr. Bach?
Right now, there's no official breakdown of it, but what we can anticipate is that we're probably going to see significant plus ups from the current funding levels that transit receives in the United States. I mean, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee that's drawing it up in the House typically has been seeking to increase that funding, and they're throwing numbers around. But it's you're talking about 30% increases. So we're talking about significant upgrades to transit, and it'll be transit of all stripes. It won't be just just buses. It'll be light rail. It'll be subway systems. It'll be commuter rail. It'll be all of the transit that will be plussed up on this. So we're actually looking forward to it. I mean, I know everybody's calling for as much as we can possibly, trying to plus up about 30 to 50%. That's what they were looking for.
No, thank you for that. I was just wondering also if there's going to be any restrictions on the monies that are available, where they'll be earmarked to go in certain directions, i.e. Capital improvements or other.
I would anticipate, sir, that the focus on the projects that Congress will be funding, you will see more climate neutral or climate friendly projects. Resiliency is going to be another catchword that you're all going to have to get used to using. And the administration has a heavy focus on equality. So they want all of these projects, all of these entities and these projects that they put up to serve various communities equally throughout the country, not advantageously affecting one community. So that's what they're looking for. That on earmarks, it's quite possible and actually very highly likely, because Chairman DeFazio has already said that he wants earmarks back for his portion of the bill, the surface transportation reauthorization. He has other segments of the infrastructure bill as well, actually significant pieces. But he wants earmarks, but you're not necessarily going to be seeing that, like taking away money from a transit entity to build, a transit center. They generally don't like to have it as a competition where you're taking from one and giving it to another. It's a plus up.
Okay. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Thank you for the information. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jerry. Anyone else from group 4? Okay, seeing none. David, I just want to thank you very, very much for you and your staff to come and join us today, even virtually, and hopefully sometime this year we'll be able to see you in person.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, before you go, I just did miss something. Is there any member of the public on the line that would have a question or comment for Mr. Turch? Okay, hearing none, then we have received your report. We appreciate it and thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda is item number 6, the approval of minutes of the February 25th board meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second. District
We have a motion to approve and a second. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Our next item is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar will be approved by one motion, and there will be no discussion on individual items unless a board member or member of the public requests a specific item to be pulled from the calendar for separate discussion. Does any board member from group 1 wish to pull an item for discussion? Group 2? Group 3? And group 4? Any member of the public wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Calamasa approves.
Is there a second?
I've second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the consent calendar passes unanimously. Okay, our next item is number 8, the authorization to award agreement number 20-062 to Allied Security Services to provide security services for transit properties. Natalie Zaragoza will do the presentation. Natalie, you're on.
Good afternoon, Chair Krupa, members of the board. My name is Natalie Zaragoza, and I'm the agency's Chief Procurement and Logistics Officer. The item before you today is a request for authorization to award agreement number 20-062 to Allied Security Services to provide the security services for the agency's transit properties. The agency has been contracting with security firms for the past 10 years to safeguard both its transit facilities and to ensure the safety of its employees and customers at these locations. Last year, when the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic shut down most businesses, there was an immediate need for portable restroom facilities for the agency's bus operators. Previously, they had been allowed access of these now closed businesses. It was quickly realized that security services were also required for these portable facilities to prevent theft, vandalism, and other unauthorized use. Something relatively new that has been implemented over the past few years, and then more extensively this past year, is a new position under the current security, it's a new position under the current security contract, and it addresses the agency's concerns over the growing number of assaults on bus operators and issues stemming from the homeless population throughout the agency's service area. The agency does actively coordinate with local social services. However, we have found this new position, which is called a mobile transit officer, has been a welcome and effective addition as they can provide 24/7, 365 days a year coverage at the locations serviced under the agreement. Their duties include performing patrols, as well as checks for unsafe conditions and hazards at the various locations. An example of one benefit is being able to use these officers to assist with clearing out homeless encampments that arise at stops so that our stops and zone staff can get to the area to clean it. This position, mobile transit officer, continues to be utilized more and more to address unruly passenger calls and generally responding to other incidents as needed. This position also provides proactive patrols all through the service area, even if there are no calls or activity. This use has added significant costs to the current contract overall, But not only does it require a more experienced individual, but the travel cost and the 24/7 availability quickly adds up. The attachments following the staff report in today's agenda show security call activities throughout the agency's service areas for 2019 and 2020. It should be noted that the areas of activity don't really change from year to year, just the levels of intensity. These areas of activity tend to be where there is more congestion, traffic, or people, such as along the Route 1, at malls and major schools and universities. The data is monitored, and when the agency starts to see trends, adjustments to coverage can be made to address them on a temporary basis, or we may address an issue on an ongoing basis, depending upon the type of activity. For example, a major problem with homeless at stops along a particular route required a temporary ramped up coverage of that area. We also have on-site coverage that can be coordinated with the mobile guard at many locations, i.e. the malls and Corona Transit, Vine, and Vine Street malls. The current agreement's third year is due to expire this coming June 30, 2021. Due to the amendments from last year, the contract value has now grown by almost 25% over just 11 months from the originally awarded value. To ensure the pricing the agency pays is both competitive in nature and is the best the market has to offer, staff need to reprocure these services to incorporate the growth in the security requirements, not only for COVID-related security at portable restrooms, but the continued and increased use of the mobile transit officer and the addition of a total of 4 24-hour posts due to increased vandalism, break-ins, and other related criminal activities. With these issues in mind, staff revised the scope of work and made sure the pricing would be itemized so that if or when portable restrooms are no longer needed, canceling these services would be straightforward. As a final note, with this new contract, security services associated with the portable restrooms are incorporated as a no guaranteed usage line item. At some point, an internal decision will need to be made to whether or not we're going to discontinue the use of portable restrooms. But right now, it is very unclear at this time when that will be. Even if businesses open back up and get back to normal, there is a very real possibility they may not want to open up their facilities to our operators. Therefore, on November 16, staff issued RFP number 20-062, and on January 9, we received 9 vendors proposals. Their names are on page 52 of today's agenda. An evaluation committee representing staff from purchasing, finance, and the risk departments evaluated the proposals in accordance with the criteria of the RFP. At the conclusion of the technical review, 5 highest-ranked firms were then invited for virtual interviews. After the interviews, 3 firms really stood out from the other 2, and as a result, those 2 firms, Contact Security and DSI Security, were dropped from further consideration. The 3 remaining vendors were then asked for their best and final offers, and the results of those submittals are on page 53 of today's agenda. After a thorough review of submittals, pricing, and interview results, it was the evaluation committee's determination that Allied Security Services was the best value for the agency. As always with these services, staff is also requesting a 5% contingency to be used over the potential 5-year contract term for unanticipated Transportation Security Administration or TSA directives, and or any other anticipated fluctuations in the number of guards needed on a temporary basis at any of the agency's facilities. As always, use of the contingency would be subject to a future change order or amendment to the proposed contract and only if needed. Sufficient funding will be included in the agency's FY22 operating budget. Funding for future years for these services beyond FY22 will be included in future fiscal year budget requests. Therefore, the action before you today is as follows. Authorize the award of an agreement to Allied Security Services in an amount of $9,657,425.93 with a 5% contingency of $482,871.30 for a total project budget of $10,140,297.23. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, are there any questions or comments from Group 1? Group 2? Group 3? And Group 4?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Jerry.
Are bus drivers now being able to access some of the malls or restroom?
No.
Natalie, did you hear that?
I did. No, they are not currently accessing. I'm not sure whether the malls are actually open, but they are not, we're still utilizing the portable restroom facilities, I know that.
No, thank you for that. And also, how big is an issue of the homeless riding the buses? I know that had come up in previous times. Is that still a significant issue?
I had heard that had lessened when we started collecting fares, but if someone else can chime in on that.
Yes, I'll take that one. Thank you, Director Sinsich. This is Larry Rubio. When we implemented the fares, that virtually eliminated the homeless from riding the buses. If they do have the fare, then obviously we do allow them to ride, but we have other issues on board buses, face mask issues, people who do ride intoxicated. There's still people who cause problems on board buses, but I believe the majority of the homeless issue has been taken care of on board the buses. We still have homeless who like to camp out at bus stops, and our mobile security services have been dealing with that problem throughout all of the cities and the unincorporated areas of the county where we have bus stops. Hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Larry, for that update. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on this item? Is there anyone, Joan, did you have any requests to speak in writing?
No, Chair, I have not received any in writing.
Okay, is there anyone on the line that would like to make a comment, member of the public, to make a comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Jeremy Smith.
And do we have a second?
Corona.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Our next item, number 9, is authorization to enter into an agreement with the City of Riverside for the Canyon Crest Bus Stop Improvement Project. Natalie, make the presentation,
Thank you
please.
again, Chair Krupa. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
This item is a request for authorization. This item is a request for authorization to enter into an agreement with the City of Riverside for the agency's Canyon Crest Bus Stop Improvement Project. There's a bit of history going back a few years, as this project was originally initiated back in FY15. The agency had identified a need for improvements to the Canyon Crest on-street stops because of increasing bus routes to the area and increasing levels of bus ridership. In April of 2015, discussions began between RTA and UCR exploring the feasibility of developing a mobility hub on their campus. Those discussions talked about incorporating the much-needed Canyon Crest improvements into the larger UCR project. A feasibility study was completed, and RTA paid $39,000, splitting the difference with UCR, and we had got a conceptual plan with a project budget then of $4.9 million. This was presented to the board at their February 2016 meeting. The mobility hub was to be built on 2.5 acres of land provided by UCR at the gateway to their campus as part of a larger campus redevelopment project. The MOU the agency signed with UCR made it clear that RTA was committing $4.9 million to the project, while UCR was responsible for any other costs over this amount. UCR put the project out to bid in early 2019, and in April, the construction bids were submitted. Unfortunately, the low bid was $4.6 million over the engineer's estimate and over the amount that RTA had committed to the project. Discussions on next steps quickly ensued between RTA and UCR. They included scaling back the design to decrease the construction costs, and then we talked about whether proceeding with the project was feasible and whether UCR would pick up the additional costs. Ultimately, the discussions were unsuccessful. During this very same period, the City of Riverside approached RTA to see whether we would partner with them on a TCC AHSC grant application. For your information, both of those are state funding programs. In any event, with the Mobility Hub project seemingly stalled out, RTA immediately thought that the UCR project might be a likely candidate for the city's request and could possibly be a solution for the funding issues that were under discussion. The Mobility Hub was a large transit project, and these types of grant programs, the Transformative Climate Communities and the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities, tend to require a showing of large greenhouse gas reduction numbers in order to give that grant application a competitive edge. RTA had the city reach out to UCR to see if they would agree to include the mobility hub project in the city's grant application. When UCR then elected not to partner with the city on the grant, the city came back to RTA to see if we had a similar project. RTA was able to suggest the Vine Street Mobility Hub project, as the project itself could use funding and was large enough to be able to show greenhouse gas reductions that would make the grant application competitive. Thus, the Vine Street project was included in the city's grant application rather than the UCR Mobility Hub, and that's a big part of why the grant funding of over $31 million was awarded to the city of Riverside. In December of 2019, UCR reimbursed RTA as $442,246 of TUNC funds that have been spent on the planning and design for the Mobility Hub project on UCR property. It was now very clear that the project would not be realized, and thus staff started the process of reallocating the funds to the originally envisioned Canyon Crest bus stop improvement project. Accordingly, the Canyon Crest project was now included in the FY21 SRTP that was then authorized at the May 2020 board meeting. So we're back to the Canyon Crest bus stop improvement project. That project will improve the current on-street stops with the construction of 6 bus bays that will have route designations to aid passengers in boarding. It will include shelters, benches, trash cans, and bus pads, and will all be located within the city right-of-way along Canyon Crest. The city also plans to provide and fully fund a bi-directional bicycle track across the street to safely move bicyclists out of bus traffic. City will be the lead agency, with RTA providing the pass-through of FTA Section 5339 funds for the project costs. City responsibilities will include issuing the bid, awarding the construction contract, and construction management. RTA responsibilities will include taking ownership of the transit amenities and maintaining them. The project schedule has a construction start beginning in June of this year, and it will complete the bus improvements within approximately 4 months or by September of this year. The independent cost estimate for this project prepared by the city's engineer is $1,150,000. As already stated, the agency has reprogrammed funds originally allocated to the UCR Mobility Hub to this project. And the funding mix of FTA Section 5339 monies and state transit assistance funds is shown on page 60 of today's agenda. Therefore, the action before you today is as follows. Authorize staff to enter into an agreement with the city of Riverside for the Canyon Crest bus stop improvement project in the not to exceed amount of $1,150,000. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Natalie. Very, very comprehensive. Do we have any questions, any questions from group 1? Group 2? Group 3?
Madam Chair, I do have a comment.
Yes, Andy.
First of all, I want to thank RTA, first of all. I think our staff here at RTA has worked diligently, both with UCR. Obviously, things didn't work out as had planned because of the cost of the initial bus terminal that was being planned on the UCR campus. But staff has done an excellent job and continuing to work with UCR and city staff. The area where that bus shelters and the improvements are going to be made is an extremely busy area of UCR. We have a lot of car traffic, a lot of pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, and again, active buses going through there. So I think at this point, this improvement is going to be a great benefit, not only to UCR, but to the surrounding area. But staff has done an excellent job in working with all entities to make sure that this was a move forward. So thank you to staff. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Okay, we will hold that, your motion there, Andy, and thank you. Are there any comments or questions from group 4? Okay, seeing none, then we have a motion to approve by Director Malendras. Do we have a second? Moreno Valley has seconded. Joan, are there any comments from any that you received in writing?
No, Chair, I have not received any requests in writing.
Okay, is there anyone on the line from the public that would wish to make a comment on this item? Hearing none, we do have the motion and the second. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. The next item 10 is approval to reprogram the Public Transportation Modernization Improvement and Service Enhancement Account Program funds for fiscal year 2015 from the Operations and Maintenance Facility construction to the purchase of 70 40-foot compressed natural gas buses for replacement. Kristen Morsinski will do the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Krupa, members of the board. My name is Kristen Morsinski, and I'm the Director of Planning. As mentioned, the item before you today is a request for approval to reprogram the PTMI-SEA funding for fiscal year 2015. And thank you, Chair Krupa, for reading that whole long grant name so that I didn't have to. The PTMI-SEA program was created by Proposition B in 2006 to fund an array of transit capital projects and is administered by Caltrans. In the board-approved capital budget for 2016, the last appropriation of PTMI-SEA funding was programmed for the new centralized operations and maintenance facility, and the full appropriation of $12,302,658 was awarded to partially fund construction of the new project. The funds are kept in an interest-bearing account that has accumulated over $963,000 as of January 2021. When CARB passed the Innovative Clean Transit, or ICT, regulation in December of 2018, it became apparent that a transition to zero-emission buses would be a crucial part of the decision-making process for a new facility. So the agency elected to study this transition before moving forward with a new O&M facility. During the last semi-annual reporting cycle, which was in August of 2020, Caltrans did notify RTA staff that all funds and interest needed to be spent by June 2023, or the PTMI-SEA funding would be due back to the state. The ZEB rollout plan effort, if you'll remember, was kicked off in October 2019, and after the year-long study, which was approved in December of 2020, we identified an approximate increase in capital costs of $76 million over a 20-year period. The plan also contained a procurement schedule that recommends that we replace the current CNG fleet one more time prior to purchasing ZEBs, give the technology a chance to mature and costs to come down. This large increase in forecasted capital costs combined with the decreased demand brought on by the pandemic have led staff to identify that purchasing replacement vehicles would be a better use for this funding. Therefore, staff recommends using the PTMI-SEA funding and interest to help fund the purchase of 70 40-foot CNG buses to replace buses that will meet their useful life based on mileage by December of 2024. This procurement is in line with the board-approved ZEB rollout plan and is estimated to be our last entirely CNG purchase for this agency. If approved, the actual procurement would likely be split into a multi-year option depending on the mileage of the current 40-foot fleet. And the PTMI-SEA funding would be used on the first initial purchase of buses so that we can meet the deadline that Caltrans provided. An updated resolution authorizing the reprogramming of this funding is required and attached to the staff report. If approved today, staff will submit a corrective action plan and a resolution to Caltrans for approval. I should note that today this is not an authorization to purchase the buses, just an authorization to move the funding. If approved, a competitive bid process for the purchase of the CNG buses would be managed in a separate staff report and presented for your consideration at a future meeting. Reprogramming of the $12 million in PTMI-SEA funding plus interest will substantially fund the purchase of the 70 40-foot CNG buses when combined with current funds already programmed. The agency has an additional over $37 million in federal, state, and local funds programmed for vehicle purchases. Additional funding to fully fund the 70 CNG buses will be identified in our upcoming fiscal year 2022 Short-Range Transit Plan, or SRTP. This item was discussed at the Board Admin and Ops meeting on March 3rd, 2021, and the committee unanimously approved and recommended this item to the full Board of Directors for their consideration. The recommendation is to approve the reprogramming of $13,265,842.88, which is the original grant plus all interest earned as of January, and any additional interest earned up to the time funds are expended to fund the purchase of 70 40-foot CNG vehicles for replacement. to authorize the board chair to execute Resolution 2021-03 on behalf of the agency, and to authorize the chief executive officer or assigned designee to file a CAP requesting the reprogramming of this funding. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Kristen. Are there any questions from Group 1? Group 2? Group 3? And Group 4? Well, this is a quiet group today. Joan, have you received any requests to speak in writing?
Chair, I have not.
Okay, is there anyone on the line that would like to make a comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to approve.
Moreno Valley.
Moreno Valley.
Senecino, second.
Senecino, second. Thank you. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? This motion then passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 11. Amend the Human Resources Policies and Procedures, Section 9-1, COVID-19 Leave and Compensation Policy, and extend the expiration to June 30th of 2021. And Laura Camacho will make this presentation. Laura?
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Krupa and members of the board. My name is Laura Camacho. I am the Chief Administrative Services Officer for the agency. Please note that you should have received a revised staff report on this item. New information received regarding a recently enacted Senate bill was added to today's report and will be discussed shortly. As you may remember, the board approved the agency's COVID-19 leave and compensation policy in March of 2020 as a result of the employee's need for leave due to the direct and indirect effects of COVID-19. The policy was initially approved through December 31st of 2020, and an extension was subsequently approved by the board through March 31st of 2021. Staff is before the committee or the board today requesting approval to further extend this policy through June 30th of 2021. While employee COVID-19 cases are showing a downward trend, cases are still present, and so is the need for leave, and hence the request to extend the policy. In addition, staff recommends the agency continue to suspend attendance policy for COVID-19 related symptoms so employees are not penalized for absences that could potentially be COVID-19 related. If approved, the amended COVID-19 policy, which is attached for review, would continue to allow employees time off with pay up to maximums outlined within tiers 1, 2, and 3, should they or their eligible dependents contract, be exposed, suffer symptoms, or be affected by school closure or loss of childcare due to COVID-19. The policy has also been amended to include coverage for paid time off to obtain the COVID-19 vaccine, or for paid time off for those who experience symptoms because of the COVID vaccine. The agency will continue to comply with any federal or state provisions which may provide a greater benefit, such as the OSHA Emergency Temporary Standards, which provides benefits to employees who contract or exposed to COVID-19 at work. The agency will also comply with the recently enacted Senate Bill 95, COVID-19 Supplemental Paid Sick Leave. Last Friday, on March 19th, Governor Newsom signed SB 95 into law, which provides covered full-time employees up to 80 hours of supplemental paid sick leave who are unable to work due to reasons summarized within the staff report related to COVID-19. These reasons are similar to those covered by the agency's COVID-19 policy and must include coverage for vaccines. The provisions of SB 95 are retroactive to January 1st of 2021 and will be in effect until September 30th of this year. Senate Bill 95 allows an employer to count the hours of another paid benefit or leave, such as the agency's COVID-19 policy, towards the 80 hours required by SB 95. Therefore, any paid time off provided to full-time employees under the agency's COVID-19 policy will count towards and will not be in addition to the 80 hours of supplemental sick leave pay required under SB 95. Full-time employees who are no longer eligible for paid leave under the agency's COVID-19 policy will be eligible for the allotment of supplemental paid sick leave under SB 95. The attached COVID-19 policy was further updated to communicate the requirements of SB 95 and reflect updated California Department of Public Health and CDC guidance. While the agency's COVID-19 policy would be set to expire on June 30th, the agency would continue to provide paid time off benefits related to COVID-19 as required by active legislation such as SB 95, OSHA Emergency Temporary Standards, or any other federal or state regulations subsequently enacted. For the fiscal impact, while there are over 300 employees who have balances under the agency's COVID-19 policy, these balances will count towards the required paid sick leave requirements under SB 95 and are included in the current fiscal year budget. It is unknown at this time the extent of SB 95 supplemental paid sick leave use. However, associated costs will be absorbed in the current fiscal year budget. As additional data becomes available, staff will determine its cost implications for the period of July 1 through September 30th, 2021, and include them in the FY22 budget. This item was discussed at today's Board Executive Committee meeting. The committee members unanimously approved and recommended this item to the full Board of Directors for their consideration. The recommendation before the board today is to amend the Human Resource Policies and Procedures Section 9.1 COVID-19 Leave and Compensation Policy and extend the expiration to June 30th, 2021. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any questions from Group 1?
Yes,
Okay, Linda?
I just have a comment. I just want to commend the staff for being so up on top of things to keep up with all the changing laws and rules. Seems like they change every week. So kudos to staff on making sure their employees are protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else from Group 1? Group 2? Group 3?
Madam Chairman, I do have a question on this. This is Ted Hoffman from Norco.
Yes,
The,
Mr.
and on SB 95, in that, you talk about fiscal impact, and I appreciate the comment in the staff report. Does that have any reimbursement from the state or for this program? Does it include anything that, or is this normally coming, is this going to be absorbed by our own budget?
Director Hoffman, Larry Rubio here. To the best of our knowledge, there is no reimbursement from the state or any other source. We may be able to recoup some of this money from the federal money that we're receiving at this point, and our finance department will be working on that to see if that opportunity exists.
Well, I appreciate it. I understand what happens up in Sacramento is these things come down, and don't get me wrong, I think it's important, but a lot of times they don't have any funding sources, and we're stuck locally holding that. And so I would hope that we try to recoup some of this funding with all this trillions of dollars that were sent down from Washington and by Sacramento spending. So just my point on it. But thank you very much, Mr. Rubio.
Thank you, Ted. Anyone else from Group 2? Moving on to Group 3. And Group 4. Joan, have you received any requests to speak in writing?
Yes, Chair. Art Aguilar, President of VATU, is on the line. He would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Aguilar.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the time. I'm in 2 board meetings right now, so I apologize for that backfeed. I'd just like to thank Larry Rubio and his staff for continuing to take care of our members, and also for the governor and the team up there for giving us the additional 80 hours. And our membership is very proud in serving Riverside County and transporting people back and forth. And I just wanted to take this time and point of privilege to once again thank Larry Rubio. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Your appreciation is well appreciated by the Board of Directors. Thank you. Is there anyone else on the line that would like to make a comment on this item? Hearing none, do I need a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
We have,
Second.
okay, Joan, did you get the motion and the second on that?
I've got District 5 for a motion and Riverside for a second. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Are there any no's? Any abstentions? Very good. This item passes unanimously. Okay, we are now on item number 12, which is board member comments. And we will go through the groups again. So group 1,
Yes,
anyone
Linda.
have any comments?
Chair. It's
Yes,
Bridget from
Bridget.
Wildomar. Yes. So I attended one of the T Now meetings, and during that meetings, one of the presenters had actually said back on board. And I was like, oh, wait, I like that back on board concept. So Jim Neekins and I were going back and forth on emails. So we came up with the hashtag RTA back on board. And so I want to put a challenge out to the other directors on the phone about riding the bus, because we want to show that riding the bus is safe and we want everyone to get back on board. And so I'm going to try to go this Sunday. My friend's lives in Lake Elsinore. She's actually going to get on the bus and come down Grand, and then I'm going to get on the bus, and then we're going to go into Wildomar for lunch. So I will post a little video. If anyone else wants to do it, post a little video or a picture, and then make sure you do the hashtag RTA back on board, and let's get everyone back moving on public transportation.
That's an excellent challenge. Anyone else from group 1? Yes,
Linda,
Ray.
I just want to say, I know you made a comment about this being a quiet group. I had my second shot, my second vaccination, and that's kind of slowed me down, but I'm not down for the count. I'm just in slow-mo, and it's nice to see everyone at the meeting today. Thank you.
Very good, Linda. Congratulations. And Ray Santos.
Madam Chair, I just like to comment, seeing the financial profile in here, and I did look at it. I mean, I really appreciate an excellent job by our staff, Larry Rubio. I mean, seeing all the numbers in here. Even now we're on the pandemic thing, we did really a good revenue, and we did control the expenses. It's amazing how you put this together. Even the ridership went down to 71%. Still, we maintain all the expenses, especially in the salary, is still under budget. Overall, excellent job. The staff. I really appreciate that, seeing the financial statement in here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone else from group 1? Moving on to group 2.
Yes, Madam Chair, Zach from Temecula.
Yes, Zach.
Hey, thanks. I just wanted to let RTA staff know how much I just personally appreciate them. I know it's been a rough year. It's some of the little things, whether it's the staff reports or the help at the T-Now meetings, or even just the emails prior to the meeting. They're just really helpful and just make my life much easier being a director. So I just really wanted to say thank you to that. And to Bridget Moore, I'll definitely be RTA back on board with you. So, and then I hope the balance of the directors are all doing well. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Zach. Anyone else from group 2? Group 3.
Valley?
Yes, David.
Hey. I just want to shout out to, again, to the RTA staff and Mr. Rubio and his staff for this great job they're doing. Really appreciate that, and keeping us informed on what's going on in Washington and state level also. Secondly, I want to put out some information. The city of Moreno Valley is partnering up with Apple Urgent Care to host Saturday vaccinations clinics in the Moreno Valley Community Conference and Recreational Centers. And these are for the residents and teachers that are not able to get their vaccines during the weekdays or their working hours. So starting this Saturday at the CRC and going forward every Saturday thereafter from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., we will be having the vaccine center open there for teachers and residents to come out and get their vaccine. You can apply at www.appleurgentcare.com/COVID vaccine and to make an appointment. And third of all, I want to say is this: Moreno Valley Mall is hosting the vaccine for the Moreno Valley and the surrounding areas. So if you know anyone that needs to get the shots, get with the Riverside Universal Health Center to schedule an appointment. They're having a lot of vaccine vials coming in, and they're encouraging people to sign up for their vaccines at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Anyone else from Group 3?
Yes.
Madam Chairman, if I can, Ted Hoffman.
Sure.
Since we are jumping out of the purple now to red and hopefully being orange soon, I would hope that in the near future, or we can be looking towards in-person meetings as soon as possible. This is my 4th Zoom meeting today, and I have one more after this, so I would quit. I don't want to be Zooming for the next year. Just whenever we can, and I know Mr. Rubio is probably looking at the same thing and wondering when we can. So whenever we can get out of this thing, I would appreciate it. I like in-person meetings.
Thank you, Ted. Anyone else from Group 4, or excuse me, Group 3?
I'll second that, Linda.
Thank you so much. Obviously, we have a holiday coming up, March 31st. We hope you enjoy Cesar Chavez holiday. The city of Riverside has a variety of events that are occurring throughout the week, from video, interviews, a variety of other things. So check our website, and also check out the website on Latino Network. They also have a list of events occurring all of next week. And once again, thank you so much, RTA staff, for all the work that you're doing over this difficult time. I surely do appreciate all the work that you've done in the city of Riverside and all the ongoing work that you'll be doing with us on that TCC grant. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Andy. Anyone else from Group 3? We'll move on to Group 4. Okay.
Oh, I had my other hand up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Andrea does too. You want Andrea to go?
Now I see that.
Oh, no, you had your hand first up. So go ahead, Chairman Spiegel.
Okay. I know that David talked about the vaccines, and I'm sure that many of you have heard, and others who were probably in meetings at the time, the governor just announced a change in the phases and tiers of vaccines. As of April 1st, anybody age 50 and above will be open for vaccines. And April 15th, anyone 16 and above will be open for vaccines. So we will have that open to everybody in the county on April 15th. So as David said, there may be limited for times. We also will have that ability on the weekends and all the times. Just go to ruhealth.org for the vaccine appointments. Same websites have been for the last year. And, we look forward to having that opportunity because it certainly has pushed this forward. I think it makes us more conscious, but as you're being more conscious, we have to continue to wear the masks and to keep distance and following the protocol. We don't want to go back at a surge. And I was just on a call today. I agree with you, Ted. 5 and 6 calls in a day just wears your rear end out. That is spreading us. I don't know. But we have to continue because other countries are having surges and we have followed after other countries. And it's alarming that we have to make sure that we follow, because I don't think any of us want to ever go backwards again. And that's my fear, is if we get too nonchalant with vaccines and we're not taking care and we're not being due diligence. So I want to see us in a year from now being back to where we are in person. I mean, I don't know how many meetings you guys get in when you're in person, a lot less. So we're accomplishing more, but it's a little more tiring, but doesn't matter. We need to be back in person. I need to wear your hat, Ted, and just kind of have the conversations again. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Spiegel. Andrea.
Hi,
Welcome.
hello. Yes, I wanted to introduce myself. I recognize a few faces from the RTA Now meetings, but my name is Andrea Morris. I am Supervisor Washington's newest board assistant, so I'm representing him here today. And as Karen said, I just wanted to remind everyone about the vaccine availability that we have specifically at the Talkwith site here in the 3rd District. A lot of availability. And if you are on the approved list right now, I would recommend getting it before the surge of April, when everyone is eligible. So, you know, public transit, workers are eligible right now. So I would recommend doing that sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, anyone else from Group 4?
Yes, this is Art Welch, District 5. Picking up on the vaccine comments, I would like to share with you something that has helped the providers giving the shots and what have you. Out here in the past, what we did is we coordinated between several of the 55 and older communities, and they were all invited into one site. This occurred in my facility here, Sun Lakes. And all of the other people that had, all they needed to come through the front gate was to wave their little piece of paper that said, I'm eligible for the vaccine. But it really helped the county employees that are responsible for administering this. Instead of running around the countryside, they could set up one site, and it was more coordinated. And over a period of, I think it's 4 sessions now that we've had, we have well over vaccinated over 3,000 people in one site. And it's really helping our frontline workers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. Thank you, Art. Appreciate that. And I guess the message of the day is if you need the vaccine or want the vaccine, just do a little bit of research and get on a list, make an appointment, and go from there. So, Larry, do you have any announcements?
Yes, I have a couple, and I agree with Director Hoffman. I'd much rather meet in person. We're sitting here looking at a big screen television with a bunch of checkerboards all over it, and that's way too much stimulus for my head. I end up getting dizzy after about an hour, and you'll see me walk out, try and clear my head, take a drink of water, and shake it off and come back in. It's way too much for me. As I get older, these things get tougher. Also, a couple compliments came my way that I had absolutely nothing to do with. The finances, that's Charlie Ramirez in the finance department. And Art Aguilar is actually the person who reached out to me Monday night and updated me on SB 95. We got blindsided by that here. We weren't ready for it. We didn't know it was coming. But Monday night he reached out to me, so thank you, Art. I got that in Laura Camacho's hands Monday night, and she turned that around, updated her staff report that was published Friday night, and got it prepped. She studied it, researched it, got it prepped, and got it into your hands early this morning and delivered that. So we have a pretty amazing staff here. You just saw some very tenured, very skilled people retire out of here recently, but look what you have in front of you today. We didn't rebuild, we reloaded, and the staff here today is just doing an amazing job. They really didn't skip a beat. So I'm very proud to work with them, and I'm sure you're very proud to have them as your staff. So I wanted to touch on something Director Hoffman asked about last month, and that was the impact that school reopening might have on ridership. So this is an off-agenda item, so it's just a statement I'm going to make, and it's just really a high-level overview of where we're at. We've lost quite a bit of our ridership since the pandemic hit. Our February ridership posted in your board packet today, we're down 71% of our riders. Not many businesses can survive losing 71% of their customers. Fortunately, we're subsidized, and the people we're moving today are not homeless. We initially lost that big surge of people when we discontinued collecting fares. We had passengers boarding through the rear so that we didn't expose our drivers. If you recall, when the pandemic first came out, no one knew what to do. We weren't wearing face coverings. We didn't have protective shields. You couldn't buy plexiglass. Our maintenance department went to work and they made protective shields. We enclosed the driver's area with a lot of help from a lot of people. But our maintenance department designed it. A lot of people helped tweak it. We put the shields up. But during that interim period, a lot of homeless people rode the bus because it was free. Once we were able to reinitiate fare collection, we were able to get a count of how many people were riding. We implemented CDC guidelines, and we got a good idea of who was and who wasn't riding the bus. So we're down quite a few riders. But it's not just RTA. This is not just limited to California, and it's not just limited to the United States. New York subway's lost about 2/3 of its ridership. The London Underground has lost about half its ridership. Paris, Amsterdam, Rome, Brazil, New Delhi are all operating at about our level. They've lost about 1/3 of their ridership. They're also heavily subsidized by governments, and they're wondering how long they can continue this subsidy. For us, we scaled the system back quick, and we did it to match the loss of ridership. We knew that we couldn't continue to sustain the level of service that we had on the road. Our immediate challenges are money, but not so much money as ridership. And the reason we believe that our ridership is down is fear. People are afraid to be in areas where we're crowded. Just as we were talking about the board meeting, I had a text from one board member as the discussion about meeting in person. Another board member said, I'm real comfortable doing this via Zoom. So there's a lot of mixed feelings out there about, I'm one that'd rather meet in person, but there are others who want to continue to do it virtually. And the same holds true with public transit. Not everybody feels safe getting on board a bus and being around people. So that's our number one threat right now is fear. And how do we overcome that? It's new territory for us. We can't predict behaviors. We've never lived through a pandemic. The last one was over 100 years ago. What we do know is that Riverside County is heading in the right direction. They've done a lot of things right. There are a lot of vaccines out there. A lot of people are getting vaccinated, but there are a lot of people who don't want to get vaccinated. That's the next challenge for us. It's a challenge for us right here at RTA. Our marketing department is developing campaigns to provide to our customers to build confidence in the system. We're developing confidence building campaigns right here for our employees to get vaccinated. Our ridership has increased gradually. We've seen little increases since the stay-at-home order from the governor that occurred this past January. We've seen about a 5% increase, and that was where we were prior to the stay-at-home order. We know that elementary and middle school children typically don't ride public transit, but when high schools reopen, we are going to see a little bit of an increase there. We don't know how much. A lot of parents are going to be a little apprehensive, and school kids might be a little apprehensive, but we do expect to see an increase. This fall, UCR, RCCD, and MSJC will have reopened their campuses. UCR said about 75 to 80% of their students will return. Not all of those students are going to ride the bus. They've taken some surveys internally, and I think we're looking at about 60% of those that return feel comfortable riding the bus. Now, when they do return, we're going to be there with clean, sanitized buses to greet them. We're going to market our services, and we're going to rebuild our ridership as best we can. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take patience, and it's going to take a lot of work. But that's what public transit has always worked at. We've always worked really hard and done what we can to get riders in bits and pieces as we've gone along. So as RTA rebounds, the process to deploy service will be well thought out and strategic. Our dollars have to be used to rebuild a system of routes that's productive and efficient. And fixed route buses will work in heavily populated areas, as we learned. But in the less urbanized areas, I think microtransit or something similar, is a solution that we're going to have to look at. We can't continue to run 40-foot buses through small neighborhoods and expect people to fill them. So as as we move forward, we've been able to scale back what we've had. We've been able to make sense of what we had. Now let's rebuild it strategically and build a better system than what we were used to. So the pandemic set us back, and it set us back hard. It was a knockout punch, but we're getting up. We didn't stay down for the full count. We're getting up, we're on our knees, and we're gonna get up, answer the bell. It didn't take us out. RTA will be better, and it'll continue on. So Director Hoffman, that answers your question, I hope, from last month. Just trust that we have the right people here to put this agency back together, and we'll keep rolling. Chair Krupa, that concludes my announcements.
Thank you very much, Larry. Really appreciate that. And today it seems like directors were all on the same page about 3/4 of the way through the agenda. I'm thinking to myself, you know, we've had retirements in RTA staff, but the quality of the reporting and the thoroughness of the reporting remains constant. So thank you to staff on the quality of work you do, and my appreciation for what you do. And also, as a reminder, it's hashtag RTA back on board. We'll see how many people we can get doing that. And just on an upbeat note, if you'll notice on your agenda, our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 22nd at 2 p.m. And we have a location on there. So the location is the County Admin Center. So keep your fingers crossed. Who knows what will happen between now and then, but I wish you all the best, all of you, and stay healthy, stay safe. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 3:17 p.m. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you one way or the other in April. Bye-bye.